How did a homeless create the most famous luxury brand in the world? This is the story of someone who started with nothing, had no formal education, yet built his own company through sheer determination and talent. Runned away from his hometown to chase a dream in distant Paris, from being homeless to being appointed as the personal emballeur of the Empress of France. A man who, after achieving success, lost everything due to war, yet started over and rose even higher than before. From humble beginnings to controversies over alleged ties to the Nazi regime. In 2023, this company reached a valuation of $400 billion, and its CEO, Bernard Arnault, remains the richest man in the world, also known as the Terminator. If you want to know why Bernard Arnault was nicknamed the Terminator, follow the channel and click subscribe. We'll tell you in the next video. Thank you. Anyway, this is not his story. This is the story of its founder, Louis Vuitton. Louis Vuitton was born on August 4, 1821, in Arnault, a small village in France near the border with French-speaking Switzerland. His mother was a milliner, specializing in hats, and his father was a farmer. The family lived on a farm, which, like many businesses across France, was recovering from the bankruptcy caused by the Napoleonic Wars. It is believed that because of this, young Louis had no opportunity to study. He began working on the farm as a child, without learning to read or write, to help his family put food on the table. At the age of 10, his mother passed away prematurely, and his father remarried shortly afterward. Louis's life became increasingly difficult. His stepmother was described as cruel and manipulative, trying to dominate the boy and making his life miserable to the point of forcing him to leave home. At just 13 years old, Louis decided to leave home and head to Paris. Legend has it that young Louis fled at night without saying goodbye to anyone, practically a child, with no food or money, no place to go, forced to sleep on the streets or in the woods, risking his life every day. The distance between his old home and Paris was 225 miles, and this journey took about 3 years. Along the way, he stopped periodically in many villages, taking on any kind of work in exchange for money or food, thus learning different techniques from various craftsmen. He acquired skills in working with metals, wood, and fabrics. All these skills would prove invaluable in the future, when at the age of 16 he finally arrived in Paris during the height of the Industrial Revolution and secured a job as an apprentice in a workshop specializing in crafting custom trunks. In 1837, Louis arrived in Paris during the height of the Industrial Revolution, a phenomenon fueled by the expansion of railways across Europe. Travel had just become accessible to many more people, who now needed trunks and suitcases. We can say the timing was perfect. The market was growing, and Louis Vuitton found work with a craftsman named Monsieur Maréchal, where he worked for an impressive 17 years. Louis's talent became apparent immediately. Combined with the experience he gained in the workshop, it made him the most sought-after apprentice among the artisan's clients. This allowed him to establish connections with some of the most influential people in Paris, from the bourgeoisie to the aristocracy, including the court of Emperor Napoleon III. He even worked directly for the emperor's wife, Empress Eugénie de Montijo, who appointed him as her emballeur, personal packer, in 1852. In this role, he was responsible for preparing and organizing luggage for the court's official and personal travels. From that moment, Louis Vuitton became the most in-demand trunk maker in Paris. Members of the aristocracy and the emerging bourgeoisie tended to imitate the choices of the imperial family. As a result, demand for his services increased so much that just over a year later, in 1854, he left Monsieur Maréchal and opened his own shop on Rue Neuve des Capucines in Paris. That same year, at the age of 33, he married 16-year-old Clémence Émilie Pariot. A few years later, in 1858, he introduced his first revolutionary idea, a product that changed the industry standards of the time, a trunk made of canvas with a flat lid instead of a rounded one. Traditional trunks were made of leather and had rounded lids to allow rain to roll off, rather than being absorbed. Vuitton believed canvas was a better material than leather. It was lighter, more durable and waterproof, meaning it would not degrade over time. Consequently, there was no longer a need for a rounded lid, and flat-top trunks could be stacked on top of each other, making them far more practical for transport. This innovation was groundbreaking. No other craftsman had designed anything like that. However, customers were initially skeptical of the advantages of this new product, and it took 2 years for it to gain traction. Afterward, it became a great success, and Louis Vuitton trunks became a status symbol throughout France. The brand expanded beyond the country, receiving orders from nobles across Europe. In 1859, Louis opened a new workshop just outside Paris in Agnières-sur-Seine, hiring 20 new employees. It seemed that the business was flourishing and that the brand was destined to thrive forever. But unfortunately, tragedy was just around the corner. In 1870, the Franco-Prussian War broke out, forcing Louis to leave his home and take refuge with his family and thousands of others for about a year. At the end of the war, in May 1871, Louis Vuitton returned to Paris and found his workshop completely destroyed, and all his materials were stolen. Without wasting time, he decided not just to rebuild, but to relocate. He purchased a new workshop in a more aristocratic and affluent district of Paris, at 1 Rue Scribe, near the historic headquarters of the exclusive Jockey Club. It was the perfect location, situated between the train station and the Grand Hotel, making it a prime passage point for travelers. At this time, technological advancements had enabled the creation of custom fabric patterns. Seeing an opportunity, Louis modernized his trunk designs by introducing a striped pattern. The innovation was an instant success, as customers saw it as a way to stay fashionable with the latest trends. Additionally, this marketing move helped the brand combat counterfeiters by making it harder to replicate its products. 2 targets with 1 arrow. Yet, despite this effort, Vuitton had to find another solution, leading him to create the damier canvas pattern, which featured a logo with the inscription L Vuitton registered trademark. Vuitton continued working in his Paris workshop for the next 20 years, solidifying his market position. In 1885, he opened his first store outside France on Oxford Street in London. This was the first international branch, paving the way for further expansion in the early 1900s, including ventures in the United States and Asia. On February 27, 1892, at the age of 70, Louis Vuitton passed away in his home in Agnières-sur-Seine, a symbolic place for the entrepreneur. It represented the first true consolidation of his brand's success, with a larger workshop and the ability to expand his staff. This marked the poetic closure of Louis Vuitton's journey as an entrepreneur, leaving behind a legacy of craftsmanship and innovation. From that moment on, the company was entrusted to his son, Georges. Georges decided to expand the company beyond the old continent by participating in the world's Columbian Exposition, a world-famous fair held in Chicago. This event made him realize the need for an international network operating throughout the United States. Fortunately, at that very fair, he met the right person. John Wanamaker, an American businessman and politician who had just completed his term as Postmaster General of the United States. From that moment on, Louis Vuitton products became available for purchase in New York. In addition to proving himself a great businessman like his father, Georges also demonstrated exceptional craftsmanship. Years earlier, while his father was still alive, Georges Vuitton invented the tumbler lock, an innovative theft-proof locking mechanism that addressed a common problem for travelers of that time. This lock featured a unique combination system, making it nearly impossible to open without the correct key, offering a level of security far superior to traditional methods. Moreover, Georges managed to integrate this mechanism without compromising the design of their products. He created a lock with an elegant aesthetic that blended seamlessly with the trunks, even enhancing their visual appeal. The tumbler lock not only improved the functionality of Vuitton products, but also helped solidify the brand's reputation as a pioneer in quality and innovation. In 1896, Georges created the iconic LV monogram in memory of his father. This led to the development of a new pattern, the initials in a stylized Roman font, surrounded by floral motifs inspired by Japanese art. All of this was promoted through a brilliant marketing campaign. Georges Vuitton even challenged the famous escapologist Harry Houdini to escape from a trunk secured with the tumbler lock. However, there is no concrete evidence that Houdini ever accepted the challenge. At this point, the company was experiencing continuous growth, and by the early 1900s, it had over 100 employees. New designs emerged: the Keepall, the Noé, a bag designed to carry wine and champagne, and the Alma, a handbag originally commissioned by fashion icon Coco Chanel for her personal use, which was later made available to the public. After establishing a location in New York, Georges worked hard to build a commercial distribution network throughout the rest of the United States. Unfortunately, he passed away before completing his work in October 1936. Georges Vuitton left the company to his son, Gaston Louis, who soon faced an extremely difficult period. Just a few years later, in 1939, another war broke out across Europe, World War II. The Nazis invaded Poland, and France entered the war against Germany in an attempt to stop Hitler. Because of the war, everything came to a standstill. Many contracts were suddenly canceled, and several factories around the world were forced to shut down. The only way for Gaston to save the business was to collaborate with the Nazis. According to the book Louis Vuitton, a French saga by Stéphanie Bonvicini, the company was involved with the Vichy regime, which collaborated with the Nazis and was responsible for the deportation of French Jews to concentration camps. The author claims to have found previously unpublished documents and details, discovered accidentally during her research for a book meant to celebrate the company's 150th anniversary. Initially, the staff promised full cooperation, but when she requested documents from 1930 to 1945, they attempted to hide or avoid providing information, claiming the records were destroyed in a fire. Through other archives, it was discovered that Louis Vuitton opened a store in Vichy on the ground floor of the Hôtel du Parc, thanks to its collaboration with the Nazis. While other brands were forced to shut down their stores, Louis Vuitton was the only one allowed to remain open. Additionally, Bonvicini spoke with living family members and uncovered further details. Gaston reportedly instructed his son Henry to make deals with the Pétain regime at a cafe frequently visited by Gestapo agents. But the most shocking revelation is that the company allegedly opened a factory dedicated to producing glorifying artifacts of Pétain, including more than 2,500 busts. This fact was not found in any official archival documents, but was directly reported by the Vuitton family. Caroline Baboul, a spokeswoman for the publisher Librairie Artem Fayard, stated, "They have not contested anything in the book, but they are trying to bury it by pretending it doesn't exist." A spokesman for LVMH told The Guardian, "This is ancient history. The book covers a period when it was family-run and long before it became part of LVMH. We are diverse, tolerant, and all the things a modern company should be." He further stated, "We don't deny the facts, but regrettably, the author has exaggerated the Vichy episode. We haven't put any pressure on anyone. If journalists want to censor themselves, that suits us fine." But the real question is, why would the heirs of the Vuitton family disclose such a shameful chapter in their company's history? The answer lies in the 1989 battle for control of LVMH. After the war ended, the company continued to prosper. Gaston maintained operational control until his death in 1970. Initially, the business was left to his three sons, particularly Henry. But in 1977, Henry Recamier, the husband of one of his sisters, took over the company. He changed the business model from wholesale to retail, expanded it globally, and transformed it into a multinational corporation. From 1978 to 1984, the brand opened several stores across Asia, including locations in Tokyo, Singapore, Taipei, and Seoul. In 1983, Louis Vuitton decided to sponsor the America's Cup, an international sailing competition. This was a strategic marketing move to solidify its presence in the luxury market, leading to the creation of the Louis Vuitton Cup. In 1984, the company went public, selling 1 million shares at $63 each, using the funds to open additional stores. By the late 1980s, Louis Vuitton officially had 130 stores worldwide. In 1987, the company reached $1 billion in sales, and Recamier led the brand to merge with Moet & Chandon, forming the LVMH conglomerate as we know it today. Alongside Moet Hennessy, CEO Alain Chevalier, and the then 39-year-old French investor Bernard Arnault, whom Henri Recamier had brought into the company as an ally and strategic advisor, due to differences between the two CEOs over LVMH's direction. Bernard Arnault, who had a completely different vision, took advantage of stock market fluctuations and executed a series of strategic moves to take full control of the conglomerate. In 1988, Arnault invested $1.6 billion to create a holding company with Guinness, which at the time owned 24% of LVMH. In response, Recamier attempted to form a minority bloc to prevent Arnault from becoming the majority shareholder, encouraging the Louis Vuitton Group to buy as many shares as possible. However, his efforts failed as Arnault purchased an additional 13.5% of LVMH for $600 million. LVMH was originally founded on the principle that the conglomerate was too large to be managed by a single individual. On January 6, 1989, with the support of several financial institutions, Bernard Arnault became the majority shareholder, controlling 37.5% of the entire company. On January 13th, he was unanimously elected chairman of the executive management board. From that moment, both Recamier and Chevalier were forced to leave the company. The Terminator had succeeded. He had gained total control of LVMH. If you want to know why Bernard Arnault was nicknamed the Terminator, follow the channel and click subscribe. We'll tell you in the next video. Thank you. Henri Recamier tried every possible legal means to overturn Bernard Arnault's takeover bid. But on May 16th, the Commission des Opérations de Bourse ruled that no irregularities had been committed. From that moment on, no member of the Vuitton family, nor anyone connected to them, was involved in the company. Over the years, LVMH continued a series of acquisitions, growing 40 times in size over the past 25 years. In 1999, it had a market capitalization of $20 billion, and by 2023, it was worth over $400 billion. As for its CEO, Bernard Arnault's fortune grew from $12 billion in 2000 to $233 billion in 2024, solidifying his position as the world's richest person, surpassing Elon Musk the previous year.